What's going on, guys? Back with my third Gank Hunting build showcase. This time I'm running a high intelligence build with the Moonlight Greatsword. It's probably the most fun weapon I've used in a Souls game, and there's a lot you can do with it. Comparing it with the other two builds I've run, I think it's about on par with the Pyro Dex build. This one has higher burst potential and a much more versatile regular weapon, while the Pyromancer comes with more versatile spells and better area control. It still falls short of the strength of a Wrath of the Gods build, but it's definitely viable. As usual, there are a few core components to the build that I think you can't do without, and many more parts that are customizable based on how you like to play. The minimum requirements are 40 int, 16 strength, 10 dex, and 3 attunement slots. The soft cap for intelligence is 50, so you should aim for that if possible to maximize your spell damage. However, it's a possible corner to cut if you're trying to keep your soul level down, as the Moonlight Greatsword scaling stops at 40. I went with a middling 45 in the end, but you can pick anything you want in between that range. For spells, I use Pursuers and Darkbeat, which are extremely commonly used as the best two sorceries in the game. You can't rely on them alone to get kills against good players, but they're near guaranteed against bad ones, and you can still use them sneakily and creatively to take out people who are more knowledgeable. 16 strength and 10 dex are required to wield the Moonlight Greatsword, which in my opinion is far and away the best weapon choice for an intelligence-only build. Versatility of the special R2 attack can't be overstated, and it has a solid regular moveset as well. In the early stages of making this build, I briefly toyed around with the idea of having the Moonlight Butterfly Horn in addition to the Moonlight Greatsword, but I found that its damage was way too low to warrant the additional weight. You already have the stats to use it if you have the stats for MLGS, so consider it if you like spears. In the left hand, I use the Grass Crest Shield and the Tin Crystallization Catalyst. This is pretty much as standard as it gets, not too much to talk about there. These two things, plus the Crown of Dusk, make up the required gear, which add up to be on the heavier side. I recommend using Havel's Ring, as it allowed me to get around 40 poise while fast rolling. I did a lot of experimenting with the second ring slot, and mostly came to the conclusion that it's optional. If you're able to ring swap consistently in high pressure situations, I'm confident that that's the optimal choice. I would invade with Bellowing Dragon Crest, switch to Hornet when you aren't going to be casting, switch to Dark Woodgrain if you need mobility, stuff like that. If you're not comfortable with it, or you're just too lazy, I would personally recommend the Bellowing Dragon Crest ring. It can make the difference between Dark Beats or Pursuers one-shotting someone, which is a big deal. Hornet Ring isn't really going to make your Moonlight Greatsword one-shot anyone, and I value that ability highly when I'm fighting against gankers. Lastly, in addition to the usual green blossoms, make sure you keep handy a stack of repair powder for the Moonlight Greatsword's special attacks. That fully summarizes the build. Now I'm going to go into some tips and techniques. The majority of what's interesting about this build revolves around using the Moonlight Greatsword's unique R2 attack. I'm not going to talk too much about the mechanics of the sorceries themselves, but I will quickly address how they function in this build. Unfortunately, neither of the two spells are particularly strong against getting camped out of your spawn. Darkbeat comes out pretty fast, but at best you can kill one person, and my final version of the build doesn't really have enough poise to make that reliable. The sorceries mostly come into play when you have time and space to prepare before fighting. As soon as you have the chance, you should always cast Pursuers. It's too slow to be used on the fly, so just get it out there. Darkbeat can be used as a combo with Pursuers to catch rolls. Independent of Pursuers, Darkbeat in this build is primarily used as a replacement for a Hornet Ring backstab. If someone's chasing you down, you can just turn around and instant Darkbeat. If someone's trying to heal, rather than the usual backstab, use Darkbeat. In some situations it's better than backstabbing, as you can be in front of them or to the side. Sometimes it's worse because it doesn't come out instantly. It is what it is, so just make sure you utilize its strengths whenever possible. The Moonlight Greatsword R2 should only be used two-handed, as it is strictly better than one-handing it. The radius of the explosion is deceptively large, and it can be free-aimed really easily. Very similarly to the Great Fireballs of the Pyro build, a really strong choice at mid to close range is to aim it down at your feet, or to your side or back depending on where you think they might roll. Regardless of how you aim it, if you connect, it'll pretty much knock anyone down. Because of how often you'll be using this move, and in turn, how often you'll find yourself standing over someone on the ground, how you pick your next move is extremely important on this build. There is no objectively correct follow-up in this situation. If you aren't under any pressure at all from other players, I'm of the opinion that the most consistent choice is to stand directly at their back and use the two-handed R1 attack as soon as they finish standing up. This can result in a backstab depending on your timing and latency. A well-known counter to the chain backstab is for the other person to lock onto you while standing up and not spamming roll. This beats that option as well, as you're still going to be swinging. As a result, it does lose to Wake Up Parry, but it's a really uncommon choice unless they know what you're going to do already. If they aren't thinking about any of this, which is the most common scenario, they'll usually just try and roll away. The delayed R1 also covers this option, as it has the perfect timing to hit them as they exit the roll. The incredible coverage of this simple choice, using the two-hand R1 as soon as they finish getting up, makes it, to me, the best choice. A more interesting way is to predict the direction they're going to roll after the knockdown and pick an attack based on that. In a total vacuum, where you have no real reason to believe they'll roll any one direction over any other direction, this isn't worth it at all. However, there are a lot of clues you can pick up as to what they might do. If there are any other hostile phantoms in the world, chances are they're going to roll directly away from them. If they have allied phantoms, they're generally going to roll directly towards those. If they're up against a wall, they'll probably roll away from it to get more space. These are just a couple of the ways you can predict it, and it's still far from being guaranteed. If you can figure it out, it gives you the new option of being able to follow their roll with a backstab. Alternatively, you can aim another R2 at the place you think they're going to roll, which I don't recommend, but looks a lot cooler. This has been pretty long-winded, but I really think that following up on your knockdowns is the most important part of this build. If you can't finish your kills off the back of your successful R2s, you're basically going to be sunk after you're out of dark magic casts. One more technique I want to mention is to cover other reds in the world with your Moonlight Greatsword R2 when they're about to get backstabbed. People trying to get backstabs are really predictable, often stand still, and are never rolling. As a result, if you see it coming, you can just lock onto them and fire. It can cover their back while they're in a backstab already to avoid a chain, or just be used when you see a phantom trying to circle around. In this clip, I opt to hit the friendly and enemy phantom at the same time, just so he doesn't get backstabbed. There's a ton that you can do with this weapon, and this only really scratches the surface, but it's enough to find success with the build. You'll likely find that most of your kills are coming from sorceries, but they require far less thought and far less execution skill. With that all being said, let's just get to the ganks. This first one starts off with me being spawn camped. I don't have nearly enough time to cast anything, so I decide to just run away. The host tries to cut me off, but he should have used a backstab instead of just trying to slice, and I managed to make space. One phantom gets too eager, and I blast him with Dark Bead. When they see me come to the world, both with the Moonlight Greatsword and the Crown of Dusk, they really should assume that I'm going to be packing that. Me being able to get that kill is exclusively due to them not knowing what they're doing. Never forget to look at your opponent's weapons and armors when you're trying to figure out what they might do. Here I make a mistake, wasting my Dark Beads by casting at mid-range. As soon as I connect with this R2, I'm thinking about what the host is going to do next. Earlier, I mentioned that hosts generally tend to turn towards their phantoms when they're in trouble, so I'd predict that and get the backstab. Had I not been able to follow up on that for any reason, the phantom surely would have been able to cover him and he could heal. I hope this goes to show how important it is to finish off the kills from the R2. This one starts a little ways into the fight, and I've already consumed some of my Dark Beads. My other red gets hit with the backstab, and I cover him from long range within R2, hitting both. Here I make the mistake of not ganging up on this one guy while the other two fight NPCs. The other red sees this, and I don't. Remember to only use Dark Beads at point blank range. When I see the current situation, rather than running over there and turning it into a 3v2, I decide to let him distract those two and try and kill the host. I get the knockdown, and I know he's going to roll towards his friends, so I aim my R2 in that direction. I also notice here that he's mid-rolling, and store that information away for later. I get another knockdown, and I know the exact direction he wants to roll. In this situation, the R2 covers the approach of the phantom, as well as picks up the mid-roll from the host. I wait for the other invader to catch up, and then we can approach together. I try to cast Pursuers far away from him and approach first, but he's too eager, and I accidentally shoot off some balls towards him. The fight quickly turns into two 1v1s. I'm up against a mid-roller, which means I can very easily follow up his moves. He rolled more or less the direction I expected, and I'm able to follow up with an eventual backstab. I'm clearly winning, and he wants to get back towards his friend. Very easy to follow. The host is using the gold tracer, so it's a pretty safe bet that he's just going to stand around swinging. As soon as you see the damage numbers and stagger, it's time to start thinking. In this situation, where does the host want to go? I just use the R2, so in a sense, I'm in more of a recovering state than the other red who's currently swinging. He tries to roll towards me, I predict it, and get the backstab. In the heat of the moment, people follow their instincts, and it doesn't take too much thinking to figure out where they're going to go. Up next are a series of horribly executed ganks where someone tries to hide. It blows my mind that this guy would ever think that I wouldn't see him there. As with all times I notice someone trying to hide, I hide my intentions to the last second and then just try and one-shot him. I whiff the second R2 and get punished with a backstab. I should have aimed behind me because he was close enough to roll behind. Here I should have just punished with a backstab, since it would have knocked him off even if it didn't kill. He rolls off anyways, but it was still a mistake. Here I can see a tree moving as I come into the world. It's pretty far out of the way, it's hard to sneak up on without it being obvious that I already know he's there. In this situation, you should get as close as possible and just hope they don't react. I make the wrong choice by firing at mid-range, which just isn't going to kill. However, it baits the host into coming closer, and I one-shot them both. When people are trying something flashy or sneaky, they want to believe that they're outsmarting you. If you act the way they want you to act, they're happy to believe it's working. Here, I can clearly see the host on my screen. I can also watch him buff, and he walks behind me with extremely loud footsteps. Here we have probably the most cartoonish attempt to sneak up on me yet. I face away so that my pursuers don't trigger when I don't want them to, but this guy must think that I can't turn my camera. I decide to let him think he's being sneaky. I get hit by an arrow and almost blow it, but he still misses his swing, and I still kill him in one hit. And that's all I've got for this video. In closing, the Moonlight Greatsword is my new favorite weapon by far. This build is worth using just for that, and it still packs an even bigger punch thanks to the dark magic backup. Hope you guys get the chance to try it out yourselves if you haven't already. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.